Okay. Welcome, Councilman Vasquez.
Thank you.
President. Okay, please rise before Andy has to sit down and stand up. Okay, we'll begin the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, welcome everybody. I hope you had a wonderful Independence Day and a wonderful summer so far. I'd like to start out with introductions. I'm George Topple. I'm the Union Township trustee in Porter County, Indiana, and commissioner on NERC. And we'll go Dennery and Mann, and then we'll go around this way. Dennery?
Dennery Kane, Economic Development District Coordinator for NERC.
Emmanuel Becky, Planning Manager here at NERC.
Flora Baum, NERC staff.
Lois Whitaker, President of Black China Commerce of Northwest Indiana.
Jen Trowbridge, President and CEO of CoAction.
Joe Wazala, Chief Operating Officer for Northwest Indiana Realtors.
Andy Vasquez, President of the Porter County Council.
John Mathewson, LaPorte County Surveyor.
Meredith Stillwell, Director of Administration at NERC.
Selena Green, Economic Recovery Corps Fellow at NERC.
Welcome.
Kathy Luther, Environmental Director at NERC.
And Doug Ross, freelancer for the Dust Review.
Okay, welcome everybody. Good. We're ready to take a look at the minutes. For those of you who haven't had a chance to look at the minutes, we'll give you a couple of seconds. Let me know if you're ready to go. And I see some people feverishly looking at them.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Being no opposition heard, the motion to approve the minutes is passed. Okay, now we're going to go to 2.0. Brownfields to Quantum Opportunities, Insights into Northwest Indiana Redevelopment. We have a guest speaker, Selena Green, Economic Recovery Corps Fellow.
If I could just give a little background as to how NERC received an Economic Recovery Corps Fellow. Back in 2023, the Economic Development Administration announced this new program, and it was an effort to build capacity for host organizations and also to help areas that needed to advance regional initiatives in like distressed or other areas that were struggling. So NERC was one of several hundred host organizations that competed for an Economic Recovery Fellow. Kathy Luther and I worked on the application. We wanted to focus on opportunities, both that address brownfields as well as future opportunities related to the quantum corridor. So ultimately there were 65 host organizations matched with 65 fellows over 44 states across the country and territories. And this is a 2.5-year fellowship that began February of 2024 at no cost to NERC. So Selena has been with us. She's essentially a contract employee of the International Economic Development Corporation and EBA, and NERC serves as the host organization. We also partnered with some of the staff at the forum to provide host organization type of support. So she'll be with us for 2.5 years. It's a 30-month-long fellowship, and we're just really happy that we were selected. This corner of Indiana received 2 fellows. There were no other fellows in Indiana selected. And then there was a change, and so we actually now have 3 fellows working in Northwest Indiana. But again, there are no other fellows that were selected to serve host organizations in Indiana. So with that, here's Selena.
Take it away.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be here and to get to know all of you over this time period. So I'm just going to share some insights that I've curated to date. The project that we're working on, as Dennery said, is really brownfields to quantum opportunities. And so the official project title is Site Inventory for New Business Attraction to Quantum Corridor. And the goal is to identify 8 brownfield sites, priority sites within the quantum fiber corridor around the toll road, and research strategies for overcoming barriers to their redevelopment. And so my research and community engagement has focused on Lake County, Gary, Hammond, East Chicago, and Lake Station. And so how this project supports the SEDS, first of all, by identifying some priority sites that could be conducive to quantum industries. We're hoping that we can support the SEDS economic growth goals and innovation goals. Also towards workforce resiliency by identifying those sites and positioning them for activation, positioning them for investment that will create workforce opportunities. And then thirdly, contributing to the quality of place goal. We're hoping that by advancing and supporting brownfield cleanup, redevelopment priorities, and expanding the capacity of those communities to repurpose those priority sites, that will be contributing to the quality of place goals in the SEDS, particularly around that toll road corridor, and also contributing to expanding quality of place with these new industries and this innovation and transformation. So some of the activities I've done to date, extensive community and stakeholder engagement. So we've had meetings with the redevelopment teams in those 4 cities, meeting with also different community leaders, local developers, people at nonprofit organizations, others who have just general concerns about the redevelopment of brownfields in those communities and have a stake in those changes. Also, we've done some mapping activities, which I'll go into, and I'm continuing to do property research and prioritization. We've located, obviously there are thousands of brownfields in this region, but we've whittled the list down to those sites that are most conducive to quantum and hosting those types of industries. So we have criteria for that we've been looking at, and we've been narrowing and expanding that search as we moved along. Networking with local and national experts. Northwest Indiana is not the only region that has this problem, and not the only region that is trying to repurpose these properties and bring in new industries. So I've been fortunate because this fellowship is national. There are other fellows working on similar issues. We've been learning from each other. We've had chances to visit each other's communities and also participate in regional and national conferences where this is being discussed, and learn from experts of different industries who tackle this, and also those who are still undergoing some challenges and what they're doing as far as best practices and model approaches. And then, of course, analysis of redevelopment models and proven strategies that have worked in similar communities of these sizes and of this scale of the challenges. And then researching funding opportunities to support NERC and the region's resource mobilization efforts towards this redevelopment. So we know that obviously funding is needed, and I'll share some of the insights into that as well. But those are the major activities to date. So the brownfield mapping that we've done, the team at NERC did a preliminary GIS mapping. As was mentioned, an initial scan will yield thousands of properties, but as we focus on parcels in northern Lake County of 25 acres to 50 acres within 2 miles of the toll road, that narrowed it down to 443 parcels, and then we narrowed it down even further to 42 parcels that I've been doing in-depth investigations on. And we have been evaluating for known environmental issues as well as community concerns for potential new industries that might locate there, zoning, infrastructure, assets, and other concerns. And we're continuing to evaluate properties and expand and contract that list as we learn more about the communities and as we learn more about potential reuses and interests in those areas. So I'll just share some of the redevelopment challenges and opportunities that I'm seeing so far. This is not exhaustive, but it's just to share what's come across my learnings to date, and I hope to continue learning from all of you. So one is ambiguous ownership and challenges with regard to site control. And so those challenges, there are some opportunities there as well to update the policies regarding zoning and regarding the transfer of those policies, whether it's tax sales or other opportunities, and also to proactively acquire and steward key parcels that you know are of use for quantum industries. Other challenges include limited redevelopment staffing. We're a small region, small town, small government, intentionally so, and so, but there are opportunities to expand professional development, learn from best practices that have already been proven, explore shared services and technology tools that can expand capacity beyond the redevelopment staff that communities may have. Developer hesitancy. So how can we de-risk the process for developers who might be intimidated by brownfields with more transparent processes, with clear policies and clear incentives, and help them to navigate the process so that they know and can have clear timelines and realize the opportunity that is there with transforming some of these brownfields. And then, of course, as I looked further, there's potential for displacement is one of the challenges, but our region and other communities across the country have been working to engage local developers in placemaking. There's a lot of capacity building around small and incremental development, building trust with inclusive planning processes, and working to preserve heritage alongside new and development and business attraction. Potential community opposition to reuse is a challenge that has been seen in the region. And so I've been examining ways to engage communities in planning early and often, and also increasing awareness of the potential of the industries that are interested in the region, so that people are aware of, again, the economic benefit as well as community benefits to quantum industries and adjacent suppliers and other types of businesses that might be interested. And then lastly, limited access to redevelopment financing is a challenge that has been seen. And so really increasing lender engagement around reuse and de-risking the redevelopment deals with curating an ecosystem of patient or impact capital, expanding the reach of CDFIs, and other types of financing that is appropriate for this type of redevelopment. So we have some challenges ahead of us, but we also have tremendous opportunities to make a difference in these areas. Other areas that I've been working on include resource mobilization to address some of these challenges and to take advantage of some of the opportunities. And so I've been working on prospect research for funding opportunities, as well as supporting our proposals to the EPA. Last year's that was submitted was not funded, but we are already planning and taking their feedback in preparation for this year's proposal submissions, as well as collaborating with the National ERC, Economic Recovery Corps, and their fund mobilization efforts, because there is an interest in supporting the continuity and sustainability of the projects that happen and making sure that the results and the impact is lasting. And then also where opportunities come across our desk for communities, we share those funding opportunities and RFPs with local communities and nonprofits in the area, and also support efforts to engage through partnership and technical assistance so that other stakeholders can be more successful in their own resource mobilization efforts. So what's next is really again, continuing the property research and prioritization, finalizing that to the short list of 8 priority sites, and beginning the detailed site investigations, crafting and proposing redevelopment strategies for those 8 sites, which you all will continue to be engaged in, continuing stakeholder and community engagement, supporting resource mobilization and development, and continuing to network with others who have more experience in this area. So how I hope that you all will remain involved is sharing site suggestions. We've done mapping, but you're living there in the communities. If you have suggestions or past experiences that you want to share that could inform the research, we'd love to hear it. If you have connections to particular stakeholders, particularly those who are brownfield property owners, lenders, entrepreneurs in quantum-related industries, would love to meet those connections as well, and just do informational interviews, hear their concerns, and just make sure that that's part of the perspectives and the shared learnings. Providing input on the proposed strategies when they are developed and drafted. We would love to present that to you for feedback. And then joining learning and networking events so we can all continue to educate ourselves about what's happening in the region and around the country where brownfield transformation is successful, and what can we learn from those efforts and bring that back here to Northwest Indiana. And one coming up in August is the National Brownfield Summit held by ICMA, International County Management Association. And that's going to be held in Chicago, August 5th through 8th. So hopefully some of you will join our team and being part of the Brownfields Conference and meet others who are facing similar challenges, but who have succeeded. They'll be sharing their success stories, best practices, probably opportunities for support and technical assistance. So we hope that everyone increases their knowledge along with us in this process. So that's my presentation for now. And please do keep in touch with me. You have my email if you want to get in touch.
Questions?
Yes.
Okay, if I might ask you a question, I understand that you're limited to Lake County. You don't creep over the county line a bit, do you? Or provide information for Lake Porter and the Portage counties who are represented at NERC.
So my particular research focus is Lake County. But we are also working, in collaboration with the forum, and I know that they also have a similar scan in Porter and LaPorte counties as well. And we're communicating and sharing the learning across our teams so that all 3 counties will benefit from the research that is done.
Okay, because I know that in Porter County we have at least one place that I'm very close to, and it's very close to here too. And I'm sure the Port Public has as well. So if there's some way we can get some more information or get some advice or assistance in the future, we'd be happy to get that linkage.
Yes.
Anyone else?
I'm always happy to communicate and to share learning.
This thing in Chicago from the 8th to on August 5th to the 8th, is that a webinar?
No, that's an in-person conference. There'll be about 1,500 people from across the country coming to that event. So and there'll be some site visits and tours and experiential activities as well. So it's I know it's maybe difficult to take time out of your schedule, but really do hope that with so many people coming from outside, to this region to really represent Northwest Indiana.
Where would we find the specific information if we were, or someone who's available to go to it?
On gobrownfields.org.
Gobrownfields.org.
Yes, and this presentation will be available with that information as well. I think the Brownfields Conference was also on the social media that NERC put out a month or so ago.
I'm planning to do another e-blast about it as well. Early registration is good up until the week before, so there's still time.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Any other questions? Thank you, Selena. appreciate you being here and providing the information to us. Okay, next, moving right along, we'll go on to Dennery.
I'm gonna pass this around and you can each take one. We were informed that the EDA had announced the availability of $1.45 billion in disaster recovery funding. That's the good news. I guess less than good news is that the only county that is eligible to compete for this is Lake County. This is related to the 23 and 24 straight wind, tornado, and severe storms that hit in Lake County at the end of March in 2023. And by virtue of those disasters, that qualified Lake County to compete for this. They basically have 3 tracks. There are really only 2, they call them paths. There are only 2 paths that really apply in our situation. One is the readiness path, which is for non-construction projects that build local capacity and prepare for future implementation projects. Those kinds of projects have to be completed within 12 to 18 months. And then the implementation path, I think you have up to 4 years to complete. Those are for both construction and non-construction projects. The key with all of this funding is that you have to make investments that improve your local economy to better than pre-disaster. There has to be partnership with private industry. The third path that really is not a county type of initiative, it's more of a larger regional initiative, is this industry transformation path. So I've been advised that probably that one isn't really going to work for our area. We've sent out this fact sheet as well as the notice of funding opportunity to all of the NERC commissioners that represent either Lake County entities or Lake County cities and towns. In addition, EDA eligible applicants include nonprofits, higher education institutes, so we have made outreach to those people as well. So an email again went out to the commissioners in Lake County. We're hoping to do listening sessions with them to learn more about the damage that they sustained in their communities from that 2023 event, and do some brainstorming with them about potential either group applications or single applications. We've been in contact with the Indiana Resilience Funding Hub team at IU's Environmental Resilience Institute, and they are able to help communities under 50,000, which would be all of Lake County's communities except Gary and Hammond. The other good news is this money, unlike traditional EDA money that's a 60-40 match, this money is 80-20. So 80 cents from the feds, 20 cents from the applicant. And in some circumstances, they could also be 100% federal dollars. So I realize there's only probably a few people here that have Lake County connections, but we're trying to get the word out. We're also going to sit down and explore whether this might have some value to the work that Selena is doing in terms of overcoming certain infrastructure type of obstacles that some of these sites pose. So that's what that's all about.
Just to add one thing, the NERC with the coastal program did like an assessment of hazards and disasters, within the watershed area, all the communities in the watershed. And we have like a report showing, this assessment, including communities in Lake Counties. And that's something would be very helpful to look at this assessment, because it shows, really which communities in need, to apply for these funds.
And Jenny was part of our call with the IU Resilience Hub,
Okay.
so she's aware of this funding too.
I was also gonna offer that we actually have a signed grant agreement with the coastal program and DNR that we can help, we can provide like grant readiness, technical support, on this project, for local governments or nonprofits who might be interested in pursuing that. And actually we can do that in all of the coastal counties, but for this particular opportunity, it's only Lake County. But, so we have more time to spend on individual grant readiness assistance. Should anyone?
Can anyone define a severe storm? I mean, here's a good example. Well, they didn't have a tornado in Couts about 2 weeks ago. They had some straight line winds. Just that area right there, and maybe a little west of that. And we had trees in the streets and so on. And because they don't have a lot of business, no real businesses were affected. No big tree fell on their business. So what would qualify to the federal government for a severe storm?
I honestly cannot answer that. Kathy, do you know how they qualify things as federal disasters for severe storms?
I think that whether it's a federal disaster has to do with population and impacted, but the straight line winds does count. The events in 23 or 24 that got declared as a federal disaster were straight line winds and tornadoes and severe storms, straight line winds, tornadoes. That's the grouping. And my thought is for any like planning and readiness type of thing, because I know those kind of storms impact all the counties. If we are helping Lake County, we can learn things that then we share across the county lines.
So if the National Weather Service were to have declared Couts as impacted by a straight line wind, because some of those places were out without power for 2 and 3 days, if they were to define that, they should apply for this grant then?
Well, so this is
Not for 23, 24,
Yeah.
but for, if it were to come for 25, 26, it wouldn't hurt to apply for it.
Yeah, I think we just have to keep track of whether it's a disaster declaration or not, and
There seems to be a time lag.
there's a time lag, right? So
By a couple of years between when the disaster hits,
yeah,
because Congress has to appropriate money for disaster
Yeah.
supplemental funds. So there's like a 2-year time lag.
I think that the county or this has to ask the governor, and the governor has to ask the feds to declare it a disaster. So if Porter County asked the governor to declare it a disaster, and then the governor requested a disaster, then yeah, if the next time this money comes around. And I did look to look up the disaster declarations for Northwest Indiana counties. And there were a couple. There was one in like 18, and then there was one in the big floods in 7 and 8. Some of them were all 3 counties, and some of them were just Lake County. So.
This particular funding, I think there's 12 or 13 counties in Indiana that qualify.
But the pattern is there, like that for this particular. A lot of them were either a severe winter storm or the straight line wind severe storm with flooding.
Prior disaster supplemental funds that I've been able to find information on were from 2023
Yeah.
that covered events in 21 and 22, and then 2019 federal funding year, which must have covered prior year's disasters. So it's not an every year occurrence. I honestly can't give you any insights about if there has to be a collective need across the country before Congress acts. I honestly don't know. This kind of caught us, me at least, by surprise. I had kind of forgotten about the 23 storms, and was surprised to learn more about it, quite frankly.
Wheels move slowly, but they grind by.
That's all.
Is that, okay, well, thank you, Danny. And next on the agenda is E-Man Ibrahim with three different topics: land use and housing update, sensible tools update, and NWI infill opportunities. And take it away, E-Man. It's all
Okay,
yours.
thank you. Yeah, it's gonna be like kind of long presentation, but like we were presenting the sales for a while because we were under like a time limiting to approve the sets. So that's why we have a lot of information to present today. And I'm starting with the land use and housing update, and that's basically related to NWI 2050 plus and where we are with that. So the first thing, we worked on the snapshot that I talked about it before in different meetings. And in this one, like we made a snapshot for 19 communities or major communities within the urban area. We're gonna continue with the rest of the communities, but we started with that and it's gonna be posted online. And in this one, we talked about the housing affordability. I'm showing here an example of Hammond. So we have first affordability and what we are actually lacking, what type of housing, in which income, and as you see all of the the red line here showing in the bottom here, that's all the number of housing that we're missing for this income category. And we also have recommendation in the 2050 plus about the future overall development or corridor study. And we put the map here on the right showing that Hammond, for example, is one of the traditional community and like urban core community, and that has like a different recommendation than other suburban communities. So we showed that, like the building permits too, if they are focusing all single family homes or focusing on duplexes or multifamily, as you see that they have significant multifamily housing permits in the last 20 years. So we provide this snapshot for each community so they can have a summary of the situation of the future recommendation from the regional perspective. Of course, they have their own plans, but also we're focusing in certain corridors and that will be related to future funding. So I'm showing like a major community and also Cedar Lake here. They have like some lacking for housing for income up to 25,000 a year. So they need like to work on that, and they also lacking housing for the higher income. So that's something for Cedar Lake to look at it, in the future housing, what type of housing they need. And of course, for the people making up to 25,000 a year, they get help, like a different help from HUD and from housing programs to help them with the housing. As you see the building permits on the chart here, mostly over 90% is single family homes. So they don't have in the last 20 years, a significant any duplexes or multifamily. So that's the update. So it's gonna be online for the 19 communities, and we communicating with the communities planners, so to have this information to consider in any future planning. The other thing that we are working on is the middle housing and what's the best practices for middle and high density housing. Just to define, the middle housing is referred to the lack of housing types that in between single family homes and large apartment buildings. So like duplexes, townhouses, fourplexes, all of this type of housing we're lacking here within the communities. And as we look at also the height is between 1 and 2 stories, they are moderate in scale and they are designed to blend with any neighborhood. So, and by searching, and we did like more analysis to look at the middle housing, we need about 22,500 units by the year 2050. And to add that, of course, we are not building everything. We said, by 2050, we need about 50,000 units, new units, just to meet the population projection. However, almost 40% of these housing has to be either middle housing or small print single family homes. And as we look here at the market and the pricing here within Northwest Indiana, and the duplexes is ranging between 165 and 380,000, and the fourplexes 150 to 450. The median anyway, it's between 275 or 250 and 320. And so if the prices or the median prices of duplexes and fourplexes at this price, that means now it's meeting the income that is in between 50,000 and 100,000. So that's the category that we need housing, and we need a significant number. Like we need about 1,700 units to meet that. As we looked also at the shortage here, the shortage showing again of the housing, when we did the analysis at the 2050, that we still have a significant shortage for people making up to 25,000 within the region, over 12,000 units. And we have plenty for housing that meet up to between 50 and 75,000. So what we need to focus on is the very low income and also the middle between 75,000 all the way to up 150,000. So that's the focus, because we really have plenty of the one that meeting 25 to 75,000. So that's another thing to consider. And we also have vacancy rate. So, and we looked at the trends here, the permits in the last 20 years, it's showing is still in unincorporated area of the 3 counties. So, especially Porter County, we have a significant building permits in the last 20 years. But if you look at the urban core area or the older community, we don't have much, as you see the light blue color. However, but if we look at the next map, at the percentage of the building permits of multifamily is very high in the urban core communities. So Hammond, Whiting, East Chicago, Gary, Maryville, Michigan City, and LaPorte, and Valparaiso, Portage. So we have these communities still building, and they have a significant increase in the multifamily, which is they really doing well. And I'm going to show an example in the end, one of the communities, which is Hammond, how they really try to include the middle housing within their communities and infill. So we looked at the best practices for middle and high density housing, and we came up, with some recommendations for older communities and for the newer suburban communities. So starting from zoning and policy for older community, because they mostly very much built, like they have no much land left. So they should start looking at infill and start looking at the accessory dwelling units, duplexes and triplexes, so they can use small lands with this limitation of no land available within these urban older communities. For the newer suburban communities, so they should zone for mixed use and higher density, and they also require diverse housing types of townhomes, apartment, and cottage courts. Design and form, so in the older community, they still have to preserve the historic fabric of the communities and also preserve the street grids and walkability within the area. Newer suburban, of course, they have to have a design guidelines and establish like clear standards to create this human scale environment that fit all modes of transportation. Infrastructure, like older community, they have to modernize aging utilities and stormwater system so they can attract developers to their area. For newer area, they have to plan water, sewer, and broadband infrastructure with long-term growth in mind, and also incorporate the smart growth principle. Mobility and access for older community to expand the sidewalks, bike lanes. Some communities, they have deteriorated sidewalk, which is not encouraging people to walk in these sidewalks, so they need to update that and then also incorporate green infrastructures and retrofit. And newer communities, of course, they have to design communities around multimodal. So for pedestrian, for bikers, for transit too. Housing affordability, that they have to look at different way adaptive reuse of older building or overlay zoning. That's to accommodate like housing and affordability. Newer suburban include inclusionary housing policies and density bonuses. And of course, the community engagement for both. They have to make sure to include and involve people and residents in any planning and design. Sustainability and environment, and like if we look at older community, encourage tree canopy expansion, energy retrofit, and green roof. We noticed like we did some analysis to the land cover that the older community like Hammond, East Chicago, Whiting, Munster, they are lacking trees and coverage within their communities, and that's something that should be really considered in the future. So that's the best practices for middle housing that we recommend. We continue to do like more analysis, and we're gonna have like some GIS recommendations coming in the future of middle housing. Here I'm focusing at the accessory dwelling units status in Indiana. So 9 communities in the whole state of Indiana have ADU, ordinance or zoning. There is no ADU in Northwest Indiana. Even though our neighbor in the Chicago area or Chicago suburb, they have about 11 communities in the Chicago area. And the city of Chicago by itself, they have 5 zones for like ADU. And we don't have that. But I'm showing examples here that how they built in the backyard of the house, you know, like the different type of housing. Even they can add a garage. So if you have like a side driveway, you can take it all the way to the back and build the accessory dwelling unit. So, and currently the state of Illinois, actually they are advancing House Bill 1709 and 1813 to potentially prohibit municipalities from banning ADU statewide. So, and that's something, so now the whole state, the whole community, they have to consider that. Especially older communities like that they don't have land, but some houses they have like plenty of backyard that they can add even for their children, you know, to get married or for older parents, like to have something close by to be close to the family and building something small. So it's between some communities, they build between like 800 square feet to up to 1,200 square feet. And that's something that could be happen in older communities that they don't have enough land to build any new construction. So that's something I wanted just to highlight for this one and for the first part. Do you have any questions? Andy?
Okay, kind of toward you and Mr. Zoll here, quite actually. Yeah, we've talked about this before, you and I. How do we convince builders to do this. Because let's face it, they're concerned about their bottom line. And it's better for them to build in a rural community with 600,000 plus house for one individual, make more money with that than doing a multi-unit family type of deal. Plus, even if you did that in the rural communities, the infrastructure for having the water and the septic systems for that, if you had an apartment complex, say with 50 units, I don't know of any.
We are recommending like all of the middle housing to be within the urbanized area.
Well, or at least next to an urbanized area where they could possibly tie into, with the eventual thought of maybe even being a next and helping them. Okay, that's number one. Number two, a question that I have is how many in this committee are from some of those older communities, elected officials, who should probably be here today? How many are on the committee? Do we know?
We have a good number from older communities, but like they are not here today. But however, I'm communicating with these communities and planners, and I meet with them, and we send them all of the information just to consider that. And they actually, like all of these older community, they are doing a really good job in doing infill. And I'm gonna show, like South Bend, for example, like they lost population, between 1960 and 2010, significant, about 32,000 people. And then, like in 2020, they came up, like they said, no, we have to bring the city back and we have to do something. What they did is they target the small developers or new developers. And they offer them, like to build in a small lots, like 2 acres, 3 acres. And they held a workshop for them. And they had like a pre-approved plans. So they already have plans with different types, so it will make it faster, the process, because they have already plans offered for them, already approved, so they don't have to do like a long process. So they make it easy for them. They provided some funds, and they were able in 5 years to add like 232 units and, like bringing a new resident to the area. So that's an example, and I'm gonna talk about Hammond later, and Michigan City, and like we have and Whiting and East Chicago, all of these communities, they really try, and what they're doing is building mostly middle housing. So because they have no opportunity, they don't have enough lands like to build anymore. So they have to redevelop, they have to do infill, they have to do like a small prints. They cannot afford having single family homes anymore. So that's why, and people living in this like high density area, they want it to be in urban area that has all the amenities. That's the trends that people, that they like to live in this high density, or apartments or condominiums or whatever. They want it to be around.
And that's part of, not to interrupt you, but that's part of the problem. Okay, I grew up on the east side of Gary. I graduated from Gary Emerson. In my old neighborhood, there's a lot of empty houses. At one time, when Gary was named the murder capital of the nation, the area in which I live was #1 on the east side, the Emerson area. Now, there's a lot of houses that are empty. Could they, instead of being single family units, be repurposed, if you will, to multi-units with that system? Okay, the downside on that though is you may have the building there for people to live, but there are no amenities for them in the surrounding. They don't even have the school anymore. I mean, Emerson caught fire and they let it deteriorate, one of the first schools in the city of Gary, okay, in the region, as a matter of fact. So how do we try to help builders and individuals look past the profit motive in order to pull ourselves up? Because the way we're going, that's great, but we continue to have these areas that are neglected, and we'll continue to do it and say we'll get to them eventually, but we've kicked that can down the road, 40, 50 years already?
I know.
Just-
Gary is a special case.
Yeah.
But it should be addressed,
Yeah,
special
it
case or
is-
not.
It is addressed that they receive a lot of help, actually.
Okay, Joe?
Yeah, if I might add, so part of, it's a big picture problem.
Yes, sir.
Part of the big picture problem, like you were just talking about on the east side of Gary there, the zoning doesn't allow for the multifamily to
Correct.
exist. So it takes the wherewithal, the moxie, if you will, of the elected officials and the training
We're not here.
well, the whole NERC board is all the elected officials. So one of my questions for Iman was going to be, your study is outstanding.
Yes.
I've read this thing. I've got it memorized, the pages that's in the 2040 plan. It's 100 pages long, goes from, I think, page 202 to 302, something like that. Part of the problem is builders are not charities, so they have to pay their bills too. But as Iman just mentioned in here, one of the potential opportunities is to incentivize builders through giving them incentives for bonuses if they build higher density, but they can't build higher density until the zoning code allows for it, and the regulations surrounding getting plat approval become less strenuous on them.
Sort of like a residential TIF.
Yeah, I want to add to that. Valparaiso is trying something innovative right now, and they're doing that role modeled over a few other areas in the state. It's complicated, so I don't want to overwhelm anyone with the concept. But the idea is that you do create buy-in from builders, developers, realtors, lenders. You have to have the right people in the room. Valparaiso has started that with a 3-part symposium, and they're on the second part now, igniting those people to engage. What happens is you put a company like Coaction, who does a lot of various capital stacking, if you will, for getting housing projects launched. So what happens is the builder doesn't have a cut in profit, the lender doesn't have an issue, the city is creating market rate housing, but the people who afford that are actually people in the 60 to 120% AMI, because an entity like Coaction comes in and helps with capital stacking, also various incentives. So the people who are in it for the profit, that profit is not diminished, but it takes a lot of effort of multiple people coming together. The taxes that the people pay who might live in these homes that could be a value of $400,000, maybe they only pay $200,000 to move into that. They'll be paying taxes at a $400,000 level. So the lender has to be savvy in how they're setting all those components up to make sure it's reaching, all those pieces. And then there's things if they sell the home after so many years, there's all these things that go with it to make it complex but very doable. Many housing solutions are complex, but they can be done when you get the right people in the room. And is this the right spot to have the right people in the room? Maybe. But it's also when we take it from a larger regional approach down to that city level, they have to be in the room, right? And they have to engage. And the only other piece I want to add is where we're seeing success in the state with some of these projects is when the city is unified on a housing strategy. So this study, again, is paramount for trying to get these cities to collect, to be collective in a housing strategy, and then being all forward, in the right solution. So it's there, it's starting, it's igniting, but it's
Like government slow moving.
Well, it sounds like Gary, and I want to add, because I, have real estate in Gary. The problem is a lot of those properties are bought off the tax sale. So when you pull the comps, a lot of the, people that are investors are not interested in building new construction because they already is in the negative from the jump. And that makes it so that what they do is they rehab the older properties from the tax sale, but when it comes to evaluating those, you don't have the comps.
Yeah, so what we find, every city has to have their own strategy because it has unique elements to it. But it's this data that's going to drive the motivation, I think, for people.
So that's in this situation, that's what you're referring to.
So basically, there's a lot of land in Gary, but not properly used.
Right, and so when you look at the tax sale, they purchased the property for $5,000 and they pulled the last $5,000. properties that is similar to that, and you spending 200, 300,000 to build it, you already in
One thing that I'd like to add is about the moxie of the elected officials. There was just an article in the Post Tribune the other day about Valparaiso, and the question was, should Valpo annex this 5-acre parcel for a new development within the city that was going to be a higher density development? I believe it was Althoff Homes was building it, they're proposing it, that was going to include duplexes, townhomes, and the public came out. The public who was remonstrating against it had homes that were in the $1 million range, and they were arguing that that was going to create traffic issues, was going to create drainage issues, and that the council ultimately split 5-2 to approve the zoning or the annexation and the zoning to allow that development to occur. But it wasn't 100% of the council that was there. There were still, it takes people that are knowledgeable about what creates a healthy community. Kind of like what you're saying, Andy, you know, Gary has a lot of problems, and a lot of it has to do with having to have a really in-depth, long-term master plan that includes changing zoning. Hammond, for instance, a lot of the downtown area in Hammond, when I was appraising property, Hammond zoning, R1 zoning said minimum 50-foot lots. Except when you get on Sibley Boulevard and that, which is where all the 25-foot lots are, they have a zoning code that's R1A that allows for small lots, and if that house burns down, it can be rebuilt. But if it was just R1, the house can exist for as long as it stands, but if it deteriorates to a point where it has to be rebuilt, it can't be rebuilt until it meets that code. So that's where some of those issues come into play, and it's starting with the plan, having a government that's willing to take the step to move forward, having infrastructure like you're talking about that can handle the sewer, water, in Gary Miller area, internet, you know, that's a big problem over there. So it's and as I think Jen was talking about, it's got to come down to the individual community having their own plan and focusing on implementing it. And unfortunately, sometimes it gets implemented.
My interjection go on to a separate chapter in this thing. As we plan for the future, the emerging communities also have to be addressed with infrastructure and planning. Prior planning prevents you know what. So we are expanding, I believe, and we need to figure out where the emerging communities are going to fit into this puzzle and not be ignored. So those are important chapters. Very important chapter with the people and the population that exists, but what are we going to do for the future, and how are we going to plan? And that's what this is, a planning commission. So what are we going to do in the next 10, 20, 30, 20, 50 plus?
Yeah. One of the other issues too is the Lake Michigan watershed. You get too far south, you can't tap into Lake Michigan any longer. You gotta rely on wells.
You're in the Kankakee River watershed.
So that's another issue.
And I just might remind the councilman, I know you have another urgent appointment, unless you're okay?
Okay.
Okay.
Two more things I just want to add, or comments regarding Valparaiso new development. One of the things that the communities that they didn't do, like when they have like a significant development happening, they should show like some sort of traffic study. So, and how is that gonna generate traffic? Because people just saying that, but like maybe when we do the traffic study, it shows, like there is no congestion. But this is, they make the assumption that it will be a drainage issue, or make assumption if it's gonna be congestion. And that's why, the more analysis and data we provide, that's convincing people and convincing the town council member. So that's something that the community should focus on, especially when they have a significant development coming to the area. The other thing, Hammond, I think now they are doing, like they have the city-owned properties, and they have now I think they bought about 60-something properties. And now, as I talk to them, now they are talking to NICTI, try to get like more properties and lands around the gateway station. So they are really trying to buy their own, so they can have like a new zoning or overlay district within their community. Okay.
Okay, I might, another chapter 3, which includes what you just suggested about the traffic study. US 30 Propel, US 30 West will be tonight at Valparaiso Fire Department on Evans Street between 4 and 7 for those of you who are interested in the developments from west of 49 to the county line on US 30.
I wanted to mention that the DNR is funded on Stantec to do a water study on the Kankakee Iroquois Basin, and it's underway now. They have the first public meeting in March, and I learned about it after the fact. If people are interested in following that, we can put the link to that in the minutes too. So they're looking at demand, supply, blah blah blah. So that's going to be your Cedar Lake, your Lowell, your South County communities who have to rely on groundwater.
And along with water comes sanitary sewers.
Yeah,
That's
I mean,
one
it's
thing
got
that
more
we-
counties, it's got like Jasper and Newton, all those other counties, but, I'm not sure how well our communities are represented on their stakeholder group, so I'm trying to encourage people to at least follow it, so I can send that around or have it come out with a meeting.
Do you happen to know if they're including water reuse in their planning, or is it strictly demand supply?
I don't know, I literally just found out they started it, and the
Because
kickoff meeting was just like, hey, we're doing this.
Nationwide, water reuse is becoming more and more important.
I do not know, I think it's a good question.
Okay, well, thank you. We can move on to Sensible Tools Handbook.
Yeah, I'm just giving like a quick update about the 2 workshops that we had. NERC in partnership with the Purdue Extension, Illinois Sea Grants held the 2 workshops. I think it was like very successful, and we learned a lot personally as a staff from that. And the purpose was for participants to learn and apply the tools that outlined in the Sensible Tools Handbook Plus, and also the Ferris report, and how to use the handbook. So about 40 people attended the 2 workshops, and we had like planners, elected officials, environmental, and other interested people. We had 4 people from here attended the workshop, which is, I hope that you learned something from that. It was a really good learning experience. So the first workshop focused on the role of public planning and zoning basics and ethical considerations. And they learned how to make planning decisions about any future development using the checklist from the handbook. The second workshop emphasized the use of community planning to enhance green infrastructure through assessments of planning and zoning ordinance. So the participants really raised very good points and questions as applicants or as developers, and each group by the end presented the observation and recommendations at the end of the workshop. So hopefully we're gonna run these workshops like every year. So people can learn more. We're gonna have a different elements, different issues, challenges that we're gonna discuss in these workshops. Okay, moving to the next one, which is here focusing about infill priority areas. So we try to come up with a high priority area for infill, so we can link that also to our future funding. Like when we provide any planning, transportation improvements, or whatever will be added these infill high priority areas. So we identified the priority areas, and we look at what should be considered, like when we select a high priority area. The first for underutilized land, and basically focusing on vacant land, abundant properties, or surface parking lots. We have specifically, like significant surface parking lots, including, from strip malls or the major mall here in Hobart, also has a significant surface parking, and we're gonna offer actually funding coming soon here from NERC to provide funding for planning for these retrofit and how to plan, and utilize surface parking for different land use. And we're gonna look at also public-owned land with low economic or community return. So that's the first one, underutilized land. Proximity to infrastructure, that's very important to have, areas already have served by road, transit, and water, and sewer, and all the utilities and broadband. Locations also near schools, parks, and employment centers. For zoning and land use compatibility, we look at area where current zoning allow higher density or mixed use development. Sites where upcoming upzoning is politically and technically feasible. So this is like a criteria that we put all together, and we start to map some of these. Of course, transit-oriented development along train stations or bus station, some corridors. That's also will be a high priority. Community revitalization needs. Disinvested neighborhoods, as we talked about Gary, for example, and also retail and services. Places where redevelopment can provide affordable housing and reduce displacement of people. Market demand and economic potential, that's a little challenging because some communities, especially in the urban core communities, the market is not that high in comparison to other communities we have Crown Point, St. John, Valparaiso, Schererville, and Highland. These are the communities that really have a high sale, quick sale, within some communities within 21 days it could be sold. So that's how we gonna look at different tools, how we gonna look at market potential for the other communities that we really need to redevelop or reinvest. And again, the funding that we are providing soon, I'm going to talk in the end about this upcoming funding, can support market analysis for some communities, and that's something coming in the way. We look also at the housing vacancy, so the infill, we have about 32 over, close to 33,000 vacancy rate within the 3-county area. That's a high number. If we are looking at that we need 50,000 units to cover, a new population, we have to look at this vacancy. What's the situation of these vacancy? Are these deteriorated housing? Is this why is not filled by people? Having some issues, and that's the communities that we should have a list of all of these housing. And we have actually in GIS we get a data from HUD showing the housing that vacants for up to 3 years. And so we can get that. We can get the parcel number for all of these and figure out why these housing are empty for 3 years. So, and that's again, from the regional perspective, we can provide the data, but it's up to each community to do this type of analysis. We looked also at the undeveloped vacant parcels, including, of course, we have the build-up in the darker gray area, and the vacant undeveloped, including agriculture, is lime green color. And we're also showing here the curve that you have here is a tree and parks coverage within the communities. So as you see, Hammond, Munster, Highland, Griffith, all of these communities, they don't have enough land, as you see, especially Hammond. Look at it's a very limited land within Hammond, so the redevelopment will be a big focus. Munster also, they don't have that much. But when you look at Winfield, Lowell, and Cedar Lake, Crown Point, they still have significant land, and that's what some of them are agricultural land and it will be turned to soon to other use, which is also encouraging this problem. So redevelopment, it should be the focus in these communities, and we're looking at all of this vacancy and how we get, we got some data here, in the state level. So we have about 618 available building and vacant sites in Northwest Indiana. So 391 buildings are vacant, and we have about 227 sites. So we already have all of this, and that's the zoning for these between office, mixed use, industrial, and I think the communities are the one register these sites. So either owned by the redevelopment committee of communities or economic development, and also the some of them at the Economic Development Alliance in Lake County. So that's another thing that so we have a significant vacancy within the communities, and that's something that should be considered. Some of them, like the buildings, 391 buildings, and one of the example is the bank with C in Hammond, in downtown Hammond, how they turned that to 100 apartment. And it's really 70% of these apartments already leased. So, and that's successful example, of how you turn buildings to a different use of redevelopment to accommodate, any future growth. And Northwest Indiana in general is very attractive, especially for people coming from Illinois. We still have a low taxes, we have still good school system around the areas, in Lake County, they come to Monster, Lake Central, and Valparaiso and Chesterton, and so people are still attracted to come to Illinois. So we have to plan, the future to accommodate these future growth. Here also the state infill owned, so we have some state infill sites here. That's the orange star, that's smaller than 2 acres. And actually the 2 and 3 acres are very good size for small developers or new developers that they want to start with the small projects, and that's encouraging people to come versus, like when you have 40 acre or 200 acre or something like that. That's a significant one. It's not that easy to be built quickly. So they have also the brown area is the septic tanks, and that's also something that we exclude from infill. So it has to be within the infrastructure that has water and sewer, and not the septic tanks that it shows here in the brown area. So that's something won't be included within the high priority infill area. So we came up with some strategies for infill development, how to adjust to the policy here with the zoning reform, streamline permitting, form-based code, which this is one of the city of South Bend considered actually, and it was very successful. I think they received an award for that. When they came up with this new infill development. Public-private partnership, financial incentive, as I mentioned before, tax abatement or TIF area, and now the RDA doing the TDD or the transit development districts. That's also similar to the TIF. Again, community engagement, as I mentioned before, infrastructure investment, so they have to upgrade all of the aging or missing infrastructure to support the increased density within the area. Affordable and mixed-use income and housing policy, and land banking. So I don't want to read a lot. We're going to have this presentation online. We're taking, I think it's so long, so I'm just moving forward to the next one. Again, this is one of the high priority area here is transit-oriented development. So we mapped here the blue color, the purple color is the TDD area. We have 10 of them now within the communities, and the blue color is NERC TOT area that like we did a study and we came up with this boundary to be eligible for funding. So that will be like one of the high priority area for infill. This is like one of them. We also consider the 15-minute walks, which is a dotted circle. This is like if you have an area that has a 15 minutes walk, has a TOD, it has a TDD, all of these areas, like will be a really, like a high priority area for infill. And of course, within the urban poor communities that they need to redevelop existing deteriorated buildings or vacant buildings within the area. So I'm giving examples here of Hammond. I said I'm gonna give, of course we have a number of communities, but like I'm focusing on Hammond, for example. So they are really doing significant infill development in the last 5 years or so. So they did like the Jacob Squares, which is all of the green on the map on the right, all of these green parcels is city owned. They already got that, the Jacob Square and downtown Hammond, and that's what they try to do now. They get like all of these parcels and they try to get with developers to start doing duplexes and small print housing within this area. The next one was the bank, as I mentioned, the former Bank Calumet headquarters. So I mentioned that they already renovated that, made all of these apartments, 100 apartments within the buildings. Also the Clark High School athletic fields, and they tried to add and rezone for about 37 single-family homes. So they try to have a mix between multi-family middle housing and single-family homes. The St. Margaret Hospital Square, also they tried, now they are controlling the site, which are ideal for mixed use residential, commercial, and parking reuse, the surface parking. Hammond also invested over 50 million in ARPA funds for infrastructure. So they reconstructed Homan Avenue, try to accommodate that for the TOD that is coming, Kennedy Avenue, and installing bike lanes and sidewalks. And that's the type of infrastructure that the older communities, they need to do so they can accommodate like more people and more building within the area. They improve the area around the transit-oriented development for South Hammond Station and the Gateway Station. So that's very much an overview of the infill development. We're gonna have like mapping showing even the high priority area that is recommended from the regional perspective to the communities.
I just wanted to mention that both the bank and Clark Fields and another residential development in Hammond, we invested brownfield funds in those, and I think that's one of the things that that we haven't done enough of is, and so the brownfield is just one part of the capital stack, and it reduced the risk to the rest of the project to know what was there and plan around it, and so
yeah, they have
bragging that we did a little brownfield work in there too.
They have actually.
A lot of people think about brownfield when they're thinking about residential redevelopment, and they need to. So.
Michigan City also they do significant infill, like cooperate with different communities. So I'm just focused on one today. So any questions regarding the infill?
I just have one. You had the one slide that talked about state-owned property. How did the state get involved in owning property? First I've seen that.
It's, I don't know the details, like I'm gonna check with Grace. She gave me this map, but this is like, it could be like roads sometimes, like right of way and, like some land around, like major roads. And if it's like, sometimes it's you know, like, not just wetland and, you know, like some of these, like open lands within this area owned by the states.
I'm just surprised that there's state-owned land like that.
I can get the parcels information.
Yeah.
Majority,
All easements.
yeah.
They're in that. Leftovers.
Yeah, it's like we can get these parcels. We have the access to the parcel information and what type of zoning, so we could get that.
Okay, I just,
Okay.
first time I saw something like
I have a question. There's a concept of, it seems we need to bring innovation into this particular issue. We have a current situation which is described and a desired end state, and it seems that we can't bridge the two with our current tool set. So there seems to be a need for innovation to be introduced to at least do it piecemeal, get it started to show people that it can be done with some form of innovation.
Yeah,
That
it's
currently is not being done.
there are you know, like a significant examples, you know, even within the Midwest that we can show them, you know, like I mentioned South Bend, but like even around Indianapolis, they have also like some significant, they make a lot of changes for infill. And that's like, if we have like a sort of workshop that like, that's the elected officials, like maybe in the next Sensible Tools handbook, we can have workshop specifically on infill and try, you know, like to work with people, you know, around how you improve that, how you do that, how other communities did it, how the changes they made, you know, like it was like what kind of obstacles, you know, like we can like do something like that.
And one that I came across is currently 30 years old. Battery Park Building Authority in New York, maybe it's Newark, but in that area, they had 30-story I guess business and apartments that had put together a system to recirculate the water internally within the structure. So basically, they didn't need a connection for sewage because it was all done within the building.
I know that some overseas countries, they did that from using the stormwater. You know, that they recycle that, they you know, do like filtration to all of this water and reuse it again.
Now, from a marketing standpoint, they did have to bring in fresh water supply, but that's simply because people refused to reuse the water. They just simply rejected the concept. So they had to bring in a supply of fresh water and retrofit the building with fresh water supply. But the initial design, and it met all the standards of reprocessing and reusing all of the water that was brought into the building.
That's a good point.
One of the things, well, I think, Benary, you just sent out that document the other day. I know I got a copy of it that showed all the different tech construction concepts that are unique. And so not only looking at building from a stick-built standpoint, but looking at pre-constructed or manufactured properties that are manufactured off-site, brought and assembled, that can help reduce the cost of construction. That also has an impact on the local workforce, so there's that issue as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good
I might
study,
add that
like
the post office that is, I think about to put a place in Wheeler, they're gonna put in a drop-in building, and the only connection they need is electricity. I don't understand how that's gonna work, but they have some kind of system where you don't have to have a septic tank or anything. It's all self-contained in that little building. Very interesting, but they're backward, so it's gonna be a while.
Okay, you have no more questions?
I'll try to find this information, but quite a little while ago, I listened to a very interesting report from the Port of Cincinnati, that basically got involved in protecting the neighboring housing in that general port district. And they launched an effort to essentially prohibit investor-bought properties and then work with the community to rehab those properties. So it might just be worth, seeing what you can find on their efforts. I was kind of intrigued because it's not often that a port authority is involved in housing issues.
I never heard that.
Yeah, but
I
they've been
think-
very successful.
I think Tennessee has a similar setup of some nature to prevent people from just buying a property. They want people to come in and live within Tennessee and not just buy it. That's it.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Amanda, it was very.
Last thing, just
What?
announcement.
Okay, no.
That's coming soon, the NERC Local Technical Assistant Program, or we call it LTA for now. We might change that, but NERC has established Local Technical Assistant Program to provide funding for local governments, nonprofits, and other public agencies. And that's, we have some projects selected from the NWI 2050 Plus, and that's focusing more on corridor urbanism, transit and trail-oriented development, commercial retrofit, built-up area redevelopment, and infill and housing variety. We have a list here of other eligible projects. I don't need to read all of that, but we're gonna provide funding coming soon. So maybe it will be released next month.
For unincorporated areas as well.
Yeah, for any local government, within their.
Even the township.
Yeah, so that's, but it has to focus in some of these areas, that's a high priority area of recommendations coming from the 2050 Plus. So that's coming soon, and I wanted to just let you know because it will be released before the next meeting, so just to let you know.
Comprehensive plans is on that list there,
Yeah.
George.
Yeah.
Right in the middle.
I love it when you talk that way.
Okay,
Okay, is anything else, Amanda?
no, thank you.
Okay, thank you, and real quick, if anybody else has anything, information, I know it's getting late, but I wanted to make sure that everybody had a chance to make announcements or any comments for the good of the order. Jeff?
I would too, just again, especially with the interest of this group and the expertise. On July 29th from 5 to 8 p.m., Valparaiso is holding their second part of their 3-part symposium. Really designed, it's invite only, but people here really should be on that invite list. It's people who understand complexities for housing needs and can help identify the problems that need to be solved in order to get the right housing covered for all the various incomes, but specifically 60 to 120% AMI. So if you'd like to come, I can send something out to Dennery maybe that could go to the group or whatever, but there's a link to register and you'd be welcome to come and help.
Where?
Where will
It's
that
at
be held?
City Hall.
City Hall?
Yeah.
What time?
5 to 8, July 29th.
Okay.
Yeah, we show up anyway.
Yes,
Sure can.
absolutely. I did the
Joe and I
first
are on
time.
the thing.
I did the first time, I'm on the planning committee.
Maybe it won't show up.
So I got something
Okay, John?
that may be of interest to some people because artificial intelligence has been getting a lot of hype recently. Amazon Web Services is having a conference for people that are neophytes that have no background in the area in Chicago to give you an introduction on how to utilize artificial intelligence in government. So this is strictly for nonprofits in government. It's July 29th and July 30th. It's a half a day on the 30th. It's a full day on the 29th. And they give you applications showing you how people are utilizing artificial intelligence in the nonprofit, the government sector.
I might add, before the meeting, John had mentioned some things about cemeteries and some other ideas about GPS and things that we can do in the future. So maybe we can talk about that at another time.
I'll send the information to NERC so they can distribute that information.
Okay, and in conclusion, oh, Henry, I'm sorry.
Just to let you know, the SEDS is still pending approval by the EDA. We've not heard back. That was sent to them, I think, on June 4th. We did respond to the public comments, but none of them were deemed substantial to actually change the SEDS materially. But in the appendix, we did provide a response. And you can see the SEDS online on NERC's website under Economy in Place, under Economic Development District. I hesitated to distribute hard copies until I know that it's been approved. You know, for some reason they want some language tweaks. We'll be unstapling these and inserting new pages. Hopefully we'll hear from them soon. The other thing I wanted to let you know, Selena and I were chosen as 2 of 30 participants across 25 states to participate in 2 energy to community peer learning cohorts that are being put on by the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, managed on behalf of the U.S. Department of Energy. And the one that we chose to participate in, I'll just read what this one is. It's called Navigating Electrical Load Growth and Associated Utility Grid Impacts. This cohort will focus on strategies for adapting to increasing electricity demand driven by emerging industries such as artificial intelligence and data centers. Participants will explore how grid infrastructure can evolve to meet new economic opportunities while maintaining reliability and resilience. So I'm starting at like this level of knowledge. I hope I can get to this level of knowledge. But we were excited to be part of those chosen to participate. So I think it's 6 months, July through December, once a month. And hopefully we'll learn something, and nothing else, we'll be a lot more educated than we were. So.
Okay, thank you, Henry. Mandy, you have anything else? Okay, with that, I would like to say perhaps we can follow up with those items that were discussed here in our next meeting, which will be the next Economy in Place Committee meeting scheduled for Wednesday, October 8th, 2025 at 10 o'clock p.m. Same time, same channel. Kathy, do you have something?
I was just going to add the Environmental Committee. The next meeting is August 7th, which is unfortunately during the Brownfield workshop. But Jen, we have a workshop in a box kit. We're going to do a workshop about the Chicago MSA Climate Action Plan we are working on with the attendees. So some of you have attended the Environment Committee, and so I would encourage people who aren't going to the Broadway Conference to consider coming up to the Environment Committee.
Okay. If there's no further comment, in conclusion,